Amazon has opened up a wealth of new possibilities for CPG. It gives them a direct sales platform, a way to test products and gain new consumer insights, multiple brand and direct ad channels that are powered by a unique data set. So what does an Amazon strategy look like today? Here to lead this discussion is Travis Johnson, President of Sellwin Consulting at Dentsu, where he provides clients end-to-end Amazon and e-commerce strategies that span from media to content, creative, analytics, and onto product setup, reviews, logistics, and supply chain. Please join me in welcoming Travis and his panel.
Good morning, everybody. So we've gone from a great presentation from Brown-Forman talking about that understanding of their consumer and that relationship and building that out and building that brand love to quite a different end of the spectrum. So, you know, that elephant in the room or that, you know, that friend that you love to hate, depending on your relationship with them, called Amazon. So we've got a great and varied panel today, and I'll let them introduce themselves and talk about their individual relationship with Amazon. So we'll start with you, Bhavan.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. My name is Bhavan Gormer. I lead the media strategy for the Hershey Company, and basically what that means is I figure out ways to grow our brands on Amazon. I've actually had the pleasure of seeing our Amazon business evolve over the years. Anyone who does business with Amazon kind of understands the cycle that you work with Amazon. So initially, they want to list everything on the platform, even if it's not profitable, and then over time, as those items grow, they shift their focus to profitability. So over the last year or so, we've been able to get our portfolio in a stable position where we're able to focus on the more larger brand building perspective. So leveraging the media portion of Amazon to build brands. So that's kind of the position that we're in right now.
Hi guys, I'm Diana Gordon. I lead retail media at Mindshare Chicago. I'm part of a specialty group called Shop Plus, and our group was specifically designed to help bridge the silos that are forming between brand marketers and shopper marketers. As properties like Amazon, Walmart, Kroger, and Target are building out their own media platforms, traditional shopper marketers are under increasing pressures from their customers to invest in these media properties, but then also scrutiny from their brand counterparts to make sure that that media is just as effective and just as accountable as the traditional publishers like Facebook, Google, etc. So I'm helping those organizations really understand that dynamic and build strategies that can then help them grow their business with their key customers.
Hi, Rob Griffin, co-founder of Rise Alliance, a new type of communications firm trying to tackle, changing brand dynamics and advertisers, as everybody was just talking about. I think Amazon's an interesting marketplace because, it's a reselling product distribution platform and it's a marketing platform at the same time. And a lot of times for many brands, those two divisions historically have not necessarily communicated with each other. And so how do you solve some of these challenges and use data in unique ways and take advantage of the marketplace to build the brand, tell a story, but also move product at the same time?
And I'm Nick Morris. I lead up performance media at Voss here in New York. Most of my relationship with Amazon is trying to figure out for our clients what the best mix of traditional performance-based media like search, social, programmatic, and Amazon looks like as it's growing and really getting a lot more market share. Trying to figure out where we're going to be able to get the right customers and try to match the disparate data sets together and figure out where the best dollar is going to be spent to actually make sales.
Okay, so Nick, let's just dive straight into that. So you talked about determining the right mix between all the different channels. Obviously, Google and Facebook are taking, roughly 2/3 of all the digital spend. Where does Amazon fit, and how does your team manage the different metrics associated with Amazon versus some of the other publishers?
To Rob's point real quick though, to differentiate some of the media we have on Amazon, talk more on the lower funnel piece, comparatively to some of those other pieces of media that I touch within performance, it's about as low funnel as you get. You have the new rollout of the Amazon attribution, trying to match that up using some kind of third-party vendor, some kind of data visualization tool like a Visual IQ to match up your data from if you're using Amazon attribution against Google, against whatever Atlas solution there is nowadays. and trying to figure out where exactly the entire media mix is coming together, because each one of those in their own walled gardens isn't going to give you the source of truth. Everything is going to kind of favor their own media in some way, and the trick is making sure that you're able to kind of stitch everything together on the back end and figure out where the actual attributed value is coming from.
But Diana, I guess when we have a look at, say, Amazon metrics, and you've got ROAS versus you've got CPAs on other platforms, and then you've got, there are clients asking for what's my CPA on Amazon. How do you manage and explain to them the differences or the similarities and how it all works together?
Sure. I think the first thing that we do is we really get down to fundamentals. In my role, I've seen sort of these retail media platforms, Amazon especially, kind of create this false narrative of ROAS. So what we do is really help our clients understand how to work backwards and first make sure that the media that was delivered is what was purchased. The media that was delivered was valuable. The media that was delivered was viewable. Did a human see it? At Crew Back, so we always talk about viewability. And once all of those fundamentals are there, then we can start to build back up from a traditional performance-based media perspective of what was your cost per acquisition, what was the return on ad spend, what was the incremental return on ad spend, more importantly, to make sure that that ROAS is going to translate into growing share at Amazon, which is really what the bulk of our CPG advertisers really care about in that platform.
And Bhavon, you sort of mentioned the progression from the more lower performance into the more branding space, where, in terms of demand generation versus demand capture, where do you see Amazon has the most strength?
So for us specifically, in the unique space and confection on Amazon, so we mainly look at it as demand generation, right? So using tools like Amazon's DSP in order to drive awareness from a brand building perspective. And then from a traditional perspective, we also look at Amazon sales, but we also look at that from a ROAS perspective.
Yeah, and then I guess conversely, Rob, when you think about the more performance-based metrics and especially search, how do you think brands should, or how do you treat Amazon search differently to other?
Yeah, I think Amazon's an interesting animal that there's a lot of parallels everybody in the industry talks about, and I've been involved in media posts for pushing 20 years now, and used to MC the Search Insider Summit, and people often talk about the similarities to Google and search agencies back in the day. And while it is similar, that it's sort of new and evolving, and you have this better mousetrap, and you have all these consumers and all these transactions happening, how you manage it has to be, in my opinion, very, very differently. For a couple of factors. One, given that 90% of the sales driven on Amazon are coming off of unbranded keywords, is very, very different than it is from a traditional Google model, where that bottom demand capture is always your brand term. But Amazon's done a great job over the years of training consumers and building trust that if I just search for an unbranded product, a phone case, whatever it might be, I'll just buy it, because I know Amazon, if I get it and I don't like it, I can just return it sight unseen, no questions asked. So that changes my consumer behavior. And given that they make 90% of that revenue off of that non-branded traffic, and their conversion rate is like 5x, if I get a 5% conversion rate in Google, I'm doing cartwheels, right? But if in Amazon, if I'm getting something lower than a 50% conversion rate, I'm trying to figure out why the hell it's not working right. So in terms of your keyword allocation, how you buy media against that, to me, with Amazon, it really starts before you can start telling the brand story and building out the brand stores and using the programmatic display and the video. You really, for me, you have to get the house in order in terms of making sure you have the bottom of that funnel to capture all the demand that's already there, and really think about your keyword allocation. Google has a quality score. They don't make any money on organic. So if you have a bad quality score, Google's perfectly happy to let you jack your bid and take your money. But in Amazon, if you have a bad quality score in Amazon's algorithm, you can jack your bid all you want, and they're still not going to show you, because they're trying to manage supply and demand and manage that client expectations. And Amazon's quality score is really predicated on what Amazon sees from the brand as expected revenue. So if you're selling 100 units a day and you have 1,000 keywords, the Amazon algorithm is going to do the math and look at the expected revenue or sales per keyword and say, well, this product's really, really bad. But if I only have 10 keywords and I'm selling 100 a day, they're going to do the division and say, well, this product has more expected revenue because they're comparing that volume of sales and the keywords you're buying against categorical trending of sales by product and category. So if you have too much product in a declining category, too little product in a trending category, these are all things that historically when I was doing paid search for a brand, driving traffic to an e-commerce site to move product and drive sales, I didn't have to think about inventory. That really wasn't my problem, but in the Amazon world, I have to factor that into the equation. So to me, you really have to dial in and figure out that demand capture, and then you swim upstream, as we were talking about, in terms of building the brand story and driving more demand generation, because they do have the audience and it's there, but you need to make sure you can capture it at the bottom first.
So before we get on to the, I guess, the brand story as well, just I guess touching on what you're talking about, the skill sets required. So we've got a lot of brands and probably agencies in the audience as well. What skill set do we need in the people that are actually managing these campaigns? In the past, if you're just sitting in Google AdWords, it was fairly simple. Now, you're telling me that they need to take into account inventory, that my ads won't run, that I've got to think about margins and all those sorts of factors. There's certain placements that I can't even buy if my products aren't hitting the right margin. So, like Nick, where do we find these people? How do we train them? Are they the same Google search professionals we've had in the past with a little bit of tinkering, or do we need a slightly different skill set?
No, and I think, nodding to actually your organization over at Sellwin, the Amazon preference and a lot of the best brands that are operating on Amazon are kind of moving into this more consultative model that they prefer to work with. Tried and true search marketers aren't going to cut the entire gamut of what you need to make happen on the platform. So people with organizational consulting experience tied in with that actual marketing experience, that, in my world, that really low funnel DR experience, is probably the unicorn that you need to pull together to really activate a good demand capture side of Amazon. Boiling back in the demand gen part of it, then you become even more rare than that unicorn, having some of that more branding, much more high funnel and full picture visibility. That's a pretty challenging person to bring together into one resource.
Yeah, I was just going to say to that line, I do think it's more of a higher arching sort of strategic thinker that can help solve problems, because you have the AMS product, and there's plenty of technology companies that are out there that can automate the bid management of the keyword buying. You can go out and get a good programmatic person from a DSP or a managed service or an agency trading desk, and yeah, they can buy some display ads with the DSP, but again, trying to think about it sort of across the boards, because for a lot of brands, like I was saying, they have one team at the company that decides how many thousands of flat pallets of product that Walmart's going to get versus Target, and then you got a marketing team over here, and in Amazon it's the same group. So again, because you're factoring that all in, you can go out and get the best search guy all day long, and he can cover AMS no problem. You can go out and get a really good programmatic buyer to do video and banner ads within the Amazon ecosystem, but you really need to be more consultative, to your point, Nick, right? And be able to put it all together and help a brand sort of figure out how to put it together in the right way for them, because I don't think there really is a canned best practice for anybody yet.
So I'll speak from the agency side of that and say that kind of assumes if you're building an in-house team or an in-house capability, yeah, get the search person, yeah, get the programmatic person. But if you've got an agency, going back to what the gentleman from Jack Daniels said, someone who can write a really strong brief, because we've got the tacticians at the agencies who know how to deconstruct the AMS platform, how to deconstruct the AAQ platform, and build those audience and keyword strategies. But what we really need is someone who can help us translate your business and your marketing objectives into what's going to be meaningful for your organization. Because then we can build the campaigns and the strategies to support and achieve that.
So then, as we move on to the more upper funnel brand building activities, so Amazon's made a lot of investments and announcements in these spaces lately. And then, when you think of Amazon, you think of the Amazon.com and you yourself buying an individual product. Maybe you think of some banner ads and maybe you think of search, but when it comes to activations and when it comes to some of the in-store opportunities, Amazon Go, most brands aren't thinking of those spaces. But I think one of the biggest inroads that they've made into the more upper funnel activity is around OTT and the television space. So where, Pavon, does OTT and TV fit within Amazon and indeed fit within your overall video strategy as a brand?
Yeah, so in terms of OTT, we're still kind of filling that area out. We're actually working with a few brands right now, smaller brands, to figure out, is OTT the right strategy for them? They don't really have that, the TV budget. So we're trying to figure out, is there a way to leverage Amazon and their data to grow those specific niche brands?
Yeah, I think the OTT piece is a huge, huge opportunity. Here's a free idea for the audience, because back when I was at Havas another lifetime ago, before Nick got there, we'd gone to one of our clients, the Choice Hotels, hotel brands, and with an Amazon idea to take advantage of OTT, particularly where you don't sell, the non-endemic rates. You're not booking a hotel via Amazon means there's a lot of different rules and there's a lot of different opportunities from building a brand and driving traffic out of the Amazon ecosystem if you don't sell on Amazon. So we've gone to Choice Hotels and said, as part of your loyalty program rather, anybody that books at least 3 nights at a Comfort Inn, you should just go to Amazon and buy like 10,000 Fire Sticks. And anybody that books at least 3 nights, give them a free Fire Stick. Because then they're going to go in their room, they're going to plug it in the TV, they're going to log in. Now it's mapped to the loyalty program ID, and then if you can start mapping that what is the profile and the content preferences of somebody staying at a Comfort Inn in Boston versus New York versus Austin versus LA. And then when it comes to OTT and targeting, and you're trying to do that buying against that, now all of a sudden I'm not just comparing purchase preferences, I'm now mapping that against content preferences, content consumption by geography. And if you're an individual hotelier and you have 4 hotel properties in a certain geographic footprint, that really becomes invaluable, and particularly with OTT, the ability to get access to television inventory, in many cases at a fraction of the budget of linear TV or upfront buying, with a lot more flexibility of the targeting and the optimization that comes along with that. So I think things like that, to me, at Rise is really an area that we're really trying to focus on, of how do you better utilize this broader ecosystem, these audience preferences, and how do you then map that back against how you're actually buying digital media within the Amazon garden?
I mean, it's really interesting with Amazon going to be doing upfronts at the end of this year and taking off hundreds of millions of dollars from the agencies and off clients, obviously. Even the launch of IMDb Free Dive only announced at CES this year. The inventory that's coming out of that already eclipses what they have had before in all of the other Fire TV apps. So, it's formidable. There's 30 million Fire Sticks out there already, compared to, I think, 27, 28 million Roku. So, Amazon's not necessarily great at promoting all of their capabilities, but that's an area that I'd certainly watch for the
That is a funny point about Amazon not being good at promoting their own stuff. If you think about it, how many Fire Sticks are out there? Like, I have Prime, and I have it on my Apple TV, I have it on my Samsung TV, I have Prime Video on my phone, but Amazon does not do a great job of reminding me that I have access to all this free video content. Like, I'm paying for it, I get it, but I constantly forget it's there. So every now and again I'll go in and watch a show, and then I'll forget about it for a really long time until somebody says something, and I'm like, oh yeah, I should watch some of this Amazon content. So I think there's an opportunity for Amazon to almost promote their own products, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's really complex, right? Because you've got the Fire TV stick, you've got TVs that automatically have Fire TV built into it, then you've got the Prime Video app that's on most smart TVs, you've got IMDb, which is available across all platforms. When you look at the matrix, it's really hard to navigate, but there's lots of opportunity there if you can make sense of it all. On I guess the organizational structure, we have a single consumer that's buying a product at a point in time, yet brands are often organized in, here's the brand marketers, and then here's the retail marketers, or shopper marketers, or sales, depending on what they call it. Then we also often divide between, here's my performance team, or my performance agency, or my digital agency, and here's my branding team. Amazon's a unique environment in that all of those 4 things need to work together. You can't just have them separated. So in terms of organizational structure and how you're looking at it and how you're bringing it all together, Bhavon, how does the Hershey company make sense of it all for a single consumer view and better user experience?
Yeah, absolutely. Amazon has definitely changed the game when it comes to the e-commerce shopper relationship. So especially with the bigger retailers like Target, Walmart, now building out those media capabilities, it's really created a lot of friction for us as a company. So I think this also presents a lot of opportunity for us, because those customers are also bringing those opportunities to the retail teams in terms of trade negotiations. And they also have the added value of being able to close the loop, where Amazon is not able to kind of quite do at the moment. It also presents some opportunities for us. We've laid out a strategy to put the consumer at the center of everything that we do. So it also enables us to accelerate those strategies. So I think those teams will have to get together and plan more holistically in order to make sure that every touch point that we interact with the consumer along the journey is optimized. And I think with that we'll be able to leverage some synergies in terms of combining dollars.
So how much time do your retail teams that are looking at shelf space at Walmart 1 minute, and then also margins with Walmart with say Amazon the next minute? How much time are they spending and collaborating with the brand team? So they, if 10 is we're completely in sync, completely aligned, and 1 is they don't talk and don't know each other, where are you and where do you think things are headed?
So I would say we're probably at a 5 or 6. We've got a lot of work to do. We just brought in a new CEO who's kind of laid out the strategy. A CDO, Chief Digital Officer, who's laid out the strategy. And I think we've made, over the last year and a half, we've really started to plan more holistically and figuring out exactly how are we going to lay out strategies and execute on strategies to know who the consumer is, and make sure that we're creating better aligned strategies to engage with our consumers along the path of purchase.
And I'll add to that. I think the organizations that have a ruthless priority around having a strong data strategy and a strong audience strategy are the ones who are sort of are pulling ahead in that, because everybody's got a first party data angle, and the question really is how do you stitch those different pieces together to build a holistic and non-duplicative view of that consumer, because otherwise you're just going to be double counting your results, and therefore it's not going to be as profitable as you need it to be in the end.
I think that the focus on that idea around, as you said, of having like an audience focus, I think in Amazon becomes really important, because like you said, in Hershey's you're trying to make it a new digital strategy, you're going to put the customer first. The one thing I find very unique about the Amazon world is you're trying to put Amazon's customers first, because they're only giving you limited insight and data back on that. At the end of the day, you're trying to target Amazon's customers. So that creates an interesting dynamic that it's not necessarily one-to-one between the brand and the customer, it's brand, Amazon, customer.
And that's why we're pushing Amazon to be a better media publisher and to conform to a lot of the same standards that your Googles and your Facebooks have been challenging, right? So things like accepting third-party tags and being able to measure. And right now we've got Amazon, the media seller, being the media measurer too. So they're grading their own homework. We need to be able to allow our brands to amplify their own first-party data strategies and the ability to put DMP pixels on it. And I get the desire to want to hold consumer data sacred. I mean, I'm a consumer, I shop on Amazon, so I appreciate that. But at the same token, Amazon's monetizing that data, so brands who are investing in that platform should have the same ability to leverage that data for their own monetization.
And circling back all the way to the first comment you were making about the different KPIs that you're looking at there, when Amazon's grading its own homework, it's also obfuscating a little bit about viewability against those impressions. So when they're showing you that 5x ROAS that you're so excited about as a performance marketer, there's a lot of nuance to that you have to consider there. And on top of that, you also have the different commerce costs built into there. So yeah, I'm paying 20% of my revenue to Amazon to advertise, but then I'm distributing with them, I'm also paying 17% there. I'm already paying 50% off the top for the actual sale that I'm making on Amazon. There's a lot of cost structures that aren't necessarily built into what they're reporting to you from an advertising standpoint, and that becomes immensely critical then to be able to have some third-party visibility into what the actual performance is.
Amazon talks very much about church and state with the whole advertising versus the retail side of the business, but both of them are bringing in advertising revenue, right? Part of the retail deals is, by the way, you will be spending these dollars. How sophisticated are the retail people within the client teams? And when was the last time, Nick, somebody, a retail buyer, a retail person on the client side, sat in on a meeting to talk about a holistic Amazon strategy? Because I can tell you the Dentsu Aegis network, I've never seen that.
It really doesn't happen. And when you have your retail strategy on the client side talking about all their costs and different expenditure structures when they're working with brick and mortar retailers or Walmart for a decent comparative view, they are constantly considering all of those back end costs that are associated with selling their product that go through Walmart. That's not the conversation that typically happens on the client side people managing the Amazon engagement. So it's beyond critical for those two folks to get a little bit of connective tissue and probably, frankly, be the same person trying to manage the scope of work against both sides.
You've got to think, if you're selling anti-dandruff shampoo and through Amazon's targeting you've identified these people have got dandruff, and you've got a retail campaign against them, and then you've got a brand campaign, different budgets, same customer, all you're doing is bidding yourselves up. They bought on this, you're still advertising them over here. You know, the connection between those brand teams, and I guess the need for clients to bring it together and for agencies to encourage clients to bring it together is really important.
Well, we talked about when we were doing our prep call, right? I think that becomes even more complicated if you think about the fact that just from the media perspective of advertising within Amazon, a lot of those teams are not talking in terms of looking at it holistically, in terms of a real reach and frequency, factoring in viewability and all these other sort of metrics that we all sort of live and die by every day. But then you factor in on top of that with Amazon that depending on whether I am doing FBA, FBM, if I'm in Seller Central, if I'm in Vendor Central, the rules of what I can buy, how I can buy it, what I can target all vary. And Amazon, many cases, a lot of the brands that I work with, they're flustered because the 25-year-old kid that works at Amazon coming in the door doesn't know the difference either. They're just throwing money at Amazon because they're supposed to, right? It's like the early days of Google, right? You talk about adding more tracking and more insight, opening up the audiences, and okay, one hand you appreciate them holding on to it, and they sell you on this idea of church and state. But that's just a luxury that they can get away with right now because they're the new shiny object with a better mousetrap in the industry. The early days of Google, I used to not be able to track AdSense different than AdWords. The early days of digital advertising, many publishers wouldn't take third-party ad serving. The early days of Facebook, I couldn't use third-party tools to manage my Facebook campaigns. But eventually, if they want to grow their business beyond a certain glass ceiling, those things start to be made available to people. The challenge with Amazon is finding where that is and how to apply that pressure is an unknown because even the Amazon people don't really fully understand the ecosystem that they have. And a lot of brands I talk to feel like they're doing it because they have to. It's Amazon, but they don't necessarily feel like they're being overly strategic or particularly smart about it. They're just doing it.
And I think the competition is heating up too, right? So you've got Walmart Media Group, who rebranded and launched last year. You've got Kroger Precision Marketing, who's launched. Target Media Network rebranded as Roundel last week. So you've got these other retailers who are all looking at Amazon and saying, you know what, I've got my own fair share of that marketing space and that opportunity. And in working with some of these media partners, they've been a little bit faster to adapt to some of the cries that we've had to Amazon about transparency, about data access, etc. So I think as that competition heats up, Amazon's going to look and see that there is a potential threat for their ad revenue dollars.
Yeah, I'd say the only thing to that is, we've seen those other retailers and their capabilities grow as well, but they've not yet delivered, right? They can close the loop, but they've not showed that they are able to say, hey, your shopper saw this ad and they purchased it in the stores. They haven't been able to close the loop yet, so until they're able to do that and show that they have a leg up on Amazon, it'll still.
Well, I imagine that's a challenge as well too. With Amazon is that you want to close the loop, you want to apply the pressure, but it's a lot of work on you and your agency partners and your internal teams. And at the end of the day, if I'm selling $5 million a month in product and I'm spending less than that, good enough. Like, why am I going to futz with it? Like, I'm making money on it, so I'm just going to screw it, leave it alone.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking directly at Amazon sales, then that's great. But if you're looking more of total brick and mortar and Amazon sales, then it becomes a little more cloudy.
I think so. When you get into your Target and Walmart and the ability to have the physical store sales and then hopefully physical movement and seeing did somebody pick up that product and put it in the cart and then take it out and it's changed because of price. Once they get their heads around the physical movement and data in store and be able to blend that with the digital world, that'll be gold.
Sure.
For the moment, even some of the attribution work that I've seen from some of the others is like, I ran $100 worth of banners on my website and sales went up $1 million. Well, guess what? Those two things probably aren't entirely related, but they're going, okay, you ran some ads and sales picked up. Well, maybe it was on sale. Maybe a competitor ran out of stock. So they're not good yet at being able to find the right determinants that actually increased physical sales. It's just a lot harder. So, but once they do, I think that'll be the silver bullet.
Well, even tapping into, Amazon for like all the non-purchasable sort of media, right? You shop for something, you don't buy it, and then the next day you get an email from Amazon saying, oh, you searched for this, here's a bunch of products we think you might like, and by the way, this one's our choice, our recommendation, this is our Amazon choice for you. I can't buy that, but nobody's really figured out how do I optimize the paid stuff on the front end to get advantage of that organic retargeting that Amazon's doing on their own to move product. Like, how do I go get that? Like, what does it take to get that? How do I quantify what I actually have to do to get that? Because to your point, maybe sales went up just simply because Amazon's algorithm decided that today I'm Amazon's choice. And they're going to send out a bunch of emails telling people, you should buy this. And I'm going to click on it and buy it, right? Like, but I don't know how to go get that or how to forecast or plan for that.
And in terms of data then, so, the walled gardens, and now including Amazon, is what, the third largest publisher in the US. There's not a lot of feedback coming from them. Have you seen, or do you foresee that being different with Target and Walmart and Kroger? What are they going to open up that Amazon hasn't?
I think it's going to be a similar story to what social's been doing over the last 10 years. You have the king in Facebook, always very guarded about their data, but then you had the challenges to giant brands like Twitter, LinkedIn coming out and being a little bit more flexible with their data, and shortly after Facebook followed because they didn't want to lose their market share.
So describe flexible.
So LinkedIn, you're able to now push out work profiles to programmatic buys and be able to buy on a DSP through actual LinkedIn integrated data to know job title, all that good stuff. On Twitter, you're allowed to have a little bit extra, or previous to Facebook, you were allowed to have a lot more third-party capability to control that buy. Facebook then followed suit a little bit down the road. So now we have all these challenges like Walmart coming coming out and making it a little bit more seamless, and they're probably going to come to the table with a lot more to offer marketers in terms of data integrations and usability. Amazon's going to follow in the next few years after that, similar to, again, how the social trends went.
The short of it, my definition of being flexible is very flexible.
So we've talked a lot about, I guess, the benefits and also some of the shortcomings of Amazon in the advertising space. If we go beyond and actually have a look at products, when we're in meetings with clients, they are very afraid that Amazon launching a private label or getting into a new industry will quickly clip their wings and cause them a lot of pain. Even in the chocolate space, Amazon does have a private label chocolate, I believe. How is that impacting you? How is it impacting your product development, your advertising? Do you care? Are you worried? Do you lose sleep at night about it? Private labels and Amazon.
For us, we noticed that Amazon has actually partnered with a number of different manufacturers to launch
inferior manufacturers,
inferior products. It's not something that we're overly concerned about. I think the one aspect that we are keeping our eyes on is just the amount of data that Amazon has on our consumers. Like, they know when they're buying, they know what they're buying, they know what do they buy after they purchase our products, or what do they like to buy, like complementary products, substitute products. So that's what we're keeping our eye on. That's the issue. In terms of like media and consumer data, they may have more data than we do on our actual consumers. So that's the scary part.
Does anybody's agency or has anybody worked with like an Eveready or a Duracell or any of the battery brands?
I have not, but I'm sure they're staying up late at night.
Yeah.
I don't work with batteries, but I do work with a lot of consumables that are in commodities categories, and I think this is where it goes back to that conversation earlier about the power of storytelling and about having a strong brand. Because everyone's going to be looking for a cheaper alternative, but when you've made a connection with a consumer and you've built their trust and earned their loyalty, when they make that first purchase, and we talk a lot about first basket strategies in e-commerce, if they are using a branded search term or they are focusing on somebody that they know and trust and have used, then you have a stronger opportunity to kind of hook and hold them for the long term.
Yeah, and to that point, the data concerns us a lot. But if you look at Amazon across Hershey's, we have like the top branded searches in terms of confection. So connecting on a brand level with the consumer is definitely paramount for us.
And so you asked earlier about sort of how do metrics compare across the different publishers. So one of the ways that we consult clients is to actually use branded search query volume, growth in branded search query volume as a KPI. Because if you're doing your due diligence in media and you're actually creating demand for your products and your categories, you'll see that rendered in your branded search query volume growing. Because we know that display and sort of awareness advertising drives consumers to search.
I guess when you, the stats around Amazon private labels, they've got hundreds of them, and especially a lot in the sort of apparel space. Something like 80 or 90% of it's all in the basics range. So it really is those commodities. So I guess the lesson or opportunity for marketers and brands is to ensure you're not commoditized. Keep building that brand. You saw the Kraft Heinz drop off, and a lot of that was attributed to cutting back instead of investing in the brands in both terms of promotion and also product development and differentiation. So I think that's probably the key lesson.
I think some of that differentiation also too, if you think about Amazon from like an innovation perspective, I think innovation is a sort of a loose term that it's sort of relative to sort of current activity. What's innovative one minute isn't innovative the next minute. So I think if a lot of brands, particularly in brands that have their own sort of owned and operated stores, retail environments, brick and mortar consumer touch points. If you look at what Amazon's doing with the cashierless stores, right? I think you think about tomorrow's event, the QSR event. Well, what's the impact that's going to have on the QSR environment? Like, do I just order, walk in, grab my burger at a QSR restaurant, turn around and walk out the door, and I don't talk to anybody, I don't do anything, I just order, go in, grab, and leave? Because I think there's a lot of impacts of that sort of cashierless, automated shopping experience live, that if I'm brands not just advertising on Amazon, but looking at how they're changing consumer expectations and how they're changing the shopping experience. Because now all of a sudden, if I'm a brand and I have my own storefronts and I have my own consumer touch points, and I start taking advantage and learning what Amazon's doing from an IoT perspective and changing that experience, I'm now changing that relationship that maybe it's not Amazon's customer anymore. I'm making this person my customer, and then they might go buy my products on Amazon, but I can actually create that loyalty outside of Amazon before I get into the Amazon environment, and I can take advantage of some of the innovative things that Amazon is doing to help enhance that sort of experience and help drive loyalty from consumers before they even get in there and have to worry about private labels.
Yeah. So I guess building on the Amazon innovation, Nick, what are there's machine learning, there's video image recognition and pulling apart and parsing and optimizing video content. There's obviously Alexa and voice and new ways to discover brands. What have you or your brands or agency done in the sort of innovation space with Amazon, and how has it delivered on your expectations?
I would lean in mostly to the voice part of the conversation there. I mean, we know that voice is accelerating year over year in terms of usage and search, and pretty much all platforms, Siri, Amazon, Google Assistant. There's just a lot more access to people using voice search in every ecosystem. So a lot of our focus as of late, especially for our organic clients where we're trying to boost our organic listing, whether it's on Google or whether it's on Amazon, is focusing on that natural language aspect to what questions might come out. There's a few different tools out there that we use. We have a proprietary lab that we have in Chicago that's focused on taking our critical learnings about the audiences that we're already engaged with and understanding what kind of questions they're asking about our products or about our category in general, and ensuring that we have coverage across all different natural language inputs to find those things, so that when someone goes onto Alexa and is trying to order a product through voice purchase, or if they're trying to do a little bit of research on Google, we have the metadata on the back end on our site and our listings on our e-commerce pages that can quickly be referenced by those searches because they're set up to be natural language friendly. So that's probably the cutting edge, at least in our respective space, in the organic space, for how we're kind of addressing the Amazon evolution.
Yeah, I think the Amazon Voice is a huge piece of the equation, and I think with Alexa, I think Amazon probably leads, in my opinion, sort of voice-related search and the accuracy and the ability to better than the rest. I mean,
They may have greater
for example,
penetration.
though, but
I'm not
if
sure
you-
whether
if
the
you-
results are exactly
as a test for
yeah.
people, try Google, try Siri, and tell it to play Metallica the Black Album for you. Neither are going to understand what you're talking about. If I tell Alexa to play Metallica the Black Album, Alexa will tell me she's playing Metallica by Metallica. So like,
She should also tell you have to buy Amazon Prime to play it though.
right. Well, but I can still use Alexa connected to my iTunes
Microwave
account
or
and get it
digital
via
something.
my family subscription if I tell Alexa which one to pull it from. But it picks out the voice on that. So I feel like it's just a little more natural, it's a little more sophisticated. By the way, if anybody has the speakers at home, you can actually train the speakers. And if anybody has kids in the room, I highly encourage you to do this. You can really screw with your kids and have a lot of good laughs on it. You can tell Alexa to remember certain things. So for my 12-year-old son at home, who's just angry all the time, I've got Alexa trained now that anytime he's being a jerk, I'll just ask Alexa, why is Liam salty? And she'll spit out whatever I've told her to remember. And my kids are always like, Dad, how did you do that? How does Alexa know I'm salty? Like, so again, there's this sophistication that they have built into it for silly things even like that, that to me makes it a more viable marketing product and tactic, like for the long term.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's purely anecdotal, like a good family joke, but at the same time, you can kind of see the natural thread there is to predictive modeling for how people ask about what they want to buy. Same thing as Alexa's predicting what kind of conversation they're having in their family home. Alexa's also predicting what you want when you start asking a question about a different product, and then that's feeding back into all of their back-end DSP data to say, here is this user, they've asked this question, they're in market for this type of purchase. Let's make sure we're pushing ads their way. It's all one big green ecosystem.
Yeah, so obviously Rob's outsourced child discipline to Amazon. So imagine the data they're drawing off that. Let's just end up with what, you had a magic wand and you're actually Jeff Bezos, right? Taking aside his personal life and what changes you might make there, what would you create or do with Amazon? What's your wish list? Nick?
I would like a fully attributed NRR metric built into their performance engine. So NRR being net response rate. I don't care about cost per click. I don't care about conversions per click. I care about how many total searches or impressions or whatever there was for my product and how many sales I got out of that. So being able to distill all the way down from a lost share of voice against that total impression out there and what I was able to hit, and then boiling it all the way down to the actual amount of sales I have. I want to know if I was there at the right time to address people asking a question about my product and how I push them through the entire journey to make sure that they actually purchase it.
I would say for me, that I'm going to take my advertising hat off for a second and put my consumer hat back on. My dream would be simplify the user experience. Like, why do I have 9 Amazon apps on my damn phone? Like, why do I have to go get a Whole Foods app to be able to scan my Prime coupon? Why, if I'm in Prime Video and I find a show I want that's not free, that I have to go buy for, why do I have to then open the Amazon app to buy the video, to go back to the Prime Video, to then watch said video? Like, to me, I would like to be able to do that all in one place instead of having 6 or 7 different Amazon apps on my phone at any given moment. If they could sort of simplify the user experience. So my wish is, me as a consumer, make it a little easier for me to use all these Amazon things.
I like that idea. Building on the ecosystem piece of it, if it were me, I would continue to build out sort of these niche little areas. So they have Amazon Family, which is a great way to sort of manage your home and your family and the products that you're buying. They've got the baby registry, which is the largest baby registry in the country right now. So I would really like to see them sort of build out on that within the consumer health angle, specifically in women's health. I think that right now, from an advertising perspective, there is a lot of restrictions in the quote-unquote sensitive categories section, and I think that there's a really untapped market in women's healthcare that is begging to be tapped into.
I think from my perspective, and if any of you guys have any ways of doing this, I'd like to talk after this, but being able to connect the consumer journey throughout Amazon's different services, right? So, we run campaigns through search, we do VSP, we do managed service on Amazon's owned and operated sites. None of them talk to each other. Like, there's different reporting, there's different metrics, everything's very siloed. So I would like to, for them to be able to combine everything so we can get one complete picture of, you know, what consumers are doing before they purchase our products, what are they searching for, just kind of be able to map that entire consumer journey.
Well, I think, you know, my comment is a consumer wish, I think, is what leads to solving that wish. Because until they sort of unify the user and how they're accessing the different platforms, it's going to be really hard for them to map it back all together from an advertising perspective also. I think the two are sort of interlinked.
And on that, I'd like to everyone to thank the panel for their contribution.